All right. Well, I guess we can go ahead and get started here. So welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking about social media and audience-tailored social media strategy. My name is Ashley Ring, and I am a health communication manager at Communicate Health. And I manage projects for our clients and oversee work relating to social media, partnerships, and campaigns. On a personal note, I am based in the DC area. Fall is my favorite season, so I am loving this weather that we have here today. And I have a little dog named Zoe who I'm hoping will stay quiet during this meeting, but it's possible that she will make an appearance.
And my name is Emily Jennings. I'm a health communications associate at Communicate Health. I do social media work for clients, which includes writing content, setting objectives using analytics, and developing strategy to optimize our clients' digital performance. My personal note is that I actually got started in the world of social media through an astrology meme account that I started. I have a cat named Casper, and I'm based out of New York City.
Emily. So today we're going to be going over the differences between popular social media platforms and how best to use them. We'll also be talking about how to select social media platforms and tactics based on your priority audience. And then finally, we'll identify ways to measure social media performance and success. And so we're going to actually start this presentation interspersed with a few different polls. We're going to take a break in the middle of the presentation to do an activity. We'll continue with more presentation, and then we'll end on another activity. We've also designated a couple times for questions, so feel free to save your questions for those two pauses for questions right before each activity. So first, I'd like to share a little bit about our organization, Communicate Health. So Communicate Health, also known as CH, is a small mission-based health communication company, and we're a national leader in health literacy. CH was founded on a shared belief that everyone deserves clear and simple information about their health, and we help our clients create products and services that can be easily accessed, understood, and used by the people who need them the most. So Emily and I are excited to share more about some of the work that CH does to meet people where they are, specifically on social media today. And we're going to be sharing some examples from some of the social media work that CH does for the National Eye Institute and the Office of Disease Prevention and Health Promotion. So before we dive into the presentation, we're going to kick things off with a poll right off the bat. So we want to get an idea of how many people in attendance today use social media and how often you may use it for health information. So a poll is going to pop up on your screen, and there's going to be 4 questions, but just focus on the first 2 questions right now. The other 2 are for later in the presentation. So I'm going to pause and let everyone answer these first 2 questions. So the first question is, which social media platform do you use the most? And the second question is, how often do you use social media to search for health information? So I'll give you all a few minutes to do that. A few seconds. Oh, it sounds like all the questions are required. Can't submit just the first 2. Oh, darn. Okay. Well, I guess go ahead and answer them all then. I know you won't have really the context for the last 2 though, and we'll circle back to those later. Okay, so looking at which social media platforms everyone use the most, looks like Facebook, Instagram are pretty high up there. Um, how often do you use social media to search for health information? All of the time, pretty low. Sometimes and never are kind of tied in the middle here. So, thanks, Emily. You can probably end the poll. So, even though many of you maybe are not using social media to find health information, whether you're seeking it or not on social media platforms are full of health information. And many people do use social media as a key resource for learning things about their health. So, this is a good segue to discuss why social media is so important to health communication. So, social media is a well established health communication outreach tactic. It is easy to use, it's inexpensive, and it's an effective way to reach large numbers of people quickly. And social media is constantly evolving, but one thing remains true that more and more people continue to join social media platforms. And although social media may seem easy to use, there are many ways to approach social media thoughtfully and strategically, really to make the most of your outreach, which we'll discuss today. So, this quote is from Communicate Health's blog, We Heart Health Literacy. In today's fast paced world, more and more people are getting their information from social media, and it's part of our job as health communicators to meet folks where they're at. And this really is more true than ever as more people continue to join social media and new platforms continue to grow in popularity. So now I'm going to pass the presentation over to Emily, and she's going to walk you through some of the key differences between popular social media platforms.
Thanks, Ashley. So let's dive right in. One of the first and maybe arguably the most important strategic decision you can make when considering social media as a potential outreach tactic is selecting your platform or platforms, plural. So these are the platforms that we're going to be going over at a high level today. Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And we'll give you a bit of background on each one. And this will include audience demographics and some of these platforms' best practices, such as hashtag use, character count, and content types. But first, a lot of these platforms do have some overall best practices in common. So keeping that in mind, here are some good general pieces of advice to consider when you're picking a platform to use for your social media campaign. So the first one is choose your platform strategically, and we'll go more into how to do this later. The second is to use data points to make decisions. Some data you could consider is the best time to post and what types of content to post. And the last part of today's presentation is all about tracking performance and measuring success. So we'll be diving into this topic later as well. You want to make your content actionable, which might include a call to action. And this is a health communication best practice in general. It's especially important when there's an abundance of information, and making your content clear and actionable helps really cut through the noise. You'll want to post consistently. The best amount to post depends on the platform, really. For example, a best practice to post more frequently on Instagram, whereas you want to post maybe a bit more sparingly on LinkedIn is recommended. But the key here is to follow a consistent schedule, so your audience really knows what to expect. You want to engage your audience, and this looks very different across all platforms. It can look like tagging other organizations, sharing partner content, or commenting on posts. You want to maybe work with partners and influencers if that's an option to you, and we'll share more about working with an influencer later in this presentation. And finally, you do want to cross-promote your social media networks. For example, you should promote your Twitter activity on Facebook and vice versa, especially if you're managing multiple accounts. So now we'll go through the specific platforms and some of the demographic data that exists on their active users. And even if you're working on a health communication social media campaign with a low budget, there is a lot of data that already exists on social media audiences, which can allow you to make strategic decisions about which platforms to prioritize. You don't need to do your own formative research to find this out. So we'll start with Twitter. Twitter has about 353 million monthly active users, and use is fairly consistent across race and gender, but it is higher among those who are younger, more educated, have higher income, and are from urban areas. Twitter supports written content, graphics, and short form videos of up to around 2 minutes. And it can be used to stay up to date on news, current events, follow people or companies, and communicate with friends. Some best practices on Twitter include using graphics or written content, or for your written content, apologies. You want to write up to 280 characters, which is the limit, but shorter is always better on Twitter. You can use up to 3 hashtags. And this is obviously you can use more hashtags, but it's recommended for clarity's sake that you use 3 or less. Tag relevant organizations when mentioning their work or a collaboration. Use abbreviations. This ties back into the character count. You don't have a lot of space, so using abbreviations will help condense things. And you want to engage in existing trends using hashtags or keywords. Facebook, next one, has almost 3 billion monthly active users, making it the most used social media platform and the largest. Use is pretty consistent across age, race, gender, income, education level, and geographic location. I do want to call out that there is the stereotype that Facebook is more regularly used by people who are above 25 years old. And I would say that is correct in terms of regular use. It's more regularly used by people of that age demographic. So if you are trying to reach a younger demographic with your campaign, Facebook likely isn't going to be the right platform for that demographic, just as a flag there. Facebook supports written content, graphics, short form video, and longer videos of up to 4 hours, which makes it perfect for things like live events. And it's used to connect with family and friends, sharing photos and videos, and keep up to date with news. Some of the best practices, again, includes using a graphic or a video with your written content, writing up to 4 sentences, but shorter is better. You can use up to 2 hashtags. Hashtags on Facebook are a little different than hashtags on Twitter. They don't always link back to quote unquote trending conversations. So keep general hashtags on Facebook to a minimum. You want to tag relevant organizations if mentioning their work, and you'll want to actually spell out abbreviations and acronyms, which differs from Twitter. LinkedIn has 250 million active users, and use again is fairly consistent across gender and age groups until it drops off around 65 and over. But it is higher used among those who are white, more educated, have higher income, and are from urban and suburban areas, according to the data. It supports written content, graphics, short form videos, and longer videos of up to 15 minutes. And while other platforms are more focused on friends, family, and entertainment, LinkedIn is used to open doors to professional opportunities and networks, which makes it unique. So some LinkedIn best practices, as always, include graphics or videos with your written content, write up to 5 sentences, but again, fewer is always better. Use up to 3 hashtags, tag relevant organizations, and similar to Facebook, you'll want to spell out any abbreviations. Instagram has 1.4 billion monthly active users, and use is fairly consistent across gender, race, and income, but it is higher among those who are younger, more educated, and again, are from urban or suburban areas. And it can be connected to Facebook, as both are owned by Meta. It supports written content, but mostly graphics and short form videos of up to 10 minutes. and it can be used to connect with brands, celebrities, thought leaders, friends, family, and more. So some Instagram best practices include use eye-catching images and graphics and short-form videos. Since this is a visual platform, primarily, this is going to be the most important piece. You'll want to keep your descriptions short, aim for under 125 characters. Use abbreviations, again, to keep the description short. The focus is the graphic, not the description. You can participate in games, contests, and challenges. Use up to 11 hashtags. Instagram caps the effectiveness of hashtags at 11, but this is more hashtags than any other platform in terms of best practices. You can use a lot more on Instagram. And engage in existing trends. Similar to Twitter, Instagram follows trending hashtags and keywords, and using this gets your content seen by more people. So TikTok is the newest and, in my personal opinion, arguably the most fun social media platform. It has over 1 billion monthly active users. Its use is fairly consistent across gender, income, education, and geographic location, but use is higher among those who are younger and is slightly higher among those who identify as Black or Hispanic. It supports short-form videos almost exclusively of up to 3 minutes, and it's used to create, watch, and share videos. Some TikTok best practices: use short-form videos. It is a short-form video platform. Makes sense? Use audio in the background of your videos. TikTok will oftentimes have trending audio sounds, and using this sound in your video can get it seen by more people. You'll want to limit your text. Captions have to be under 300 characters, and this includes hashtags, so maybe keep it to around 3 to 5 hashtags. You want to use closed captioning in your videos to make them as accessible as possible to a wide range of audience members, and engage in existing trends. Along with audio, TikTok also has trending hashtags, so you can use both to engage in trends and get your content seen. Oh, yep. And on to YouTube. So YouTube has over 2.6 billion monthly active users. And it's interesting because, unlike the other social media platforms, it is both a social platform as well as a search engine. And it is the second largest search engine after Google. So this makes YouTube pretty unique. Use is fairly consistent across gender and income, but it is higher among those who are younger and more educated and from urban areas. And YouTube is a video platform almost exclusively. It supports short and long-term videos of up to 15 minutes or longer if you are posting from a verified account. You want to use background music or voiceovers for your videos. Use closed captions to keep the video accessible. Include tags in the tags section when you're uploading your video. This is YouTube's version of hashtags. And include a description giving some context for the video. And as always, shorter is better. Okay, so I know you guys already answered these poll questions, but if you don't mind entertaining us one more time, now that you've seen the past few slides describing the platforms, we would love it if you could answer the last 2 polls and see if your answers have changed at all based on what you now know. And obviously you'll have to answer the first 2 again, as we found out you can't submit unless you answer them all. So I appreciate your patience with us, but I'll give you about a minute or 2 to answer this. I saw someone's comment, Danielle Kroll. She said, I could argue that Vine is what made short videos popular. And I fully agree. I loved Vine. Rest in peace to Vine. She really paved the way. She walked so TikTok could run. Okay, I think we've got most of you in there. All right, so scrolling down to 3 and 4, looks like pretty much everybody got it right. Facebook is the platform that has the most monthly active users and is arguably the biggest social media platform. And as of now, TikTok has really paved the way for short form video. Thank you all so much for your patience and engaging with these. Great. Okay. And now that you know some more about the platforms, selecting platforms, it should seem like a straightforward step, but there are actually many factors that you'll want to consider before you do. So before picking a platform, you should ask yourself a few questions. Who are my audiences, primary and secondary, and which platforms do they use the most? So you may have this information from some formative research that you've done, or you may be looking at more general data like what I've just shared with you to kind of shape this decision. You'll want to ask which platforms are best suited for my content and messages. In some case, you may select a platform based on your audience, and then you'll need to actually develop the content that fits to that platform appropriately. And we'll be given an example of this in a bit. These next questions are based on past performance of an organization's social media. For example, which platforms does my organization use? And where do they have the most followers? Does my organization have data on performance by platform? And which platforms perform the best? So as you can see, with these questions, this process isn't always super straightforward. So whenever possible, choosing more than one platform for your social media campaign will allow you to reach more people, and you'll have a greater chance at reaching your desired audience in different places. So tactics are just as important to a social media campaign as platforms, and one will always influence the other. These are some of the questions that you can ask when choosing social media campaign tactics based on your chosen platform. How do I develop content that's best suited for my selected platform? Does my organization have a budget for paid posts or ads? And there are many benefits to using paid posts or boosted posts, but one of these benefits is that you can boost posts on platforms that you may not have a presence on. For example, you don't need to have a TikTok account to boost posts on TikTok or to submit an ad to TikTok. And you can boost posts on Instagram by going through Facebook, and even if you don't have an Instagram account. And this is a great way to get in front of new audiences without creating a new social media account from scratch. Some other questions you want to ask yourself are, which partner organizations on these platforms could I collaborate with? And is there an opportunity to work with an influencer? So we have a couple examples of these kinds of decisions in action, and we'll be showing you 2 case studies of social media campaigns that CH implemented for our federal clients that we previously mentioned at the beginning of this presentation. We're going to go into each one of these chosen platforms and social media campaign tactics that we used for each one. So we'll start with Eye on the Future. Eye on the Future was a campaign by the National Eye Institute, or NEI, and NEI is an institute under the National Institutes of Health. Their mission is to eliminate vision loss and improve quality of life through vision research. NEI has a super strong social media presence on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and they use social media to share eye health best practices and give updates on vision research. CH supports NEI with all their social media work. And this includes launching the Eye on the Future video contest to inspire teens to pursue a career in science. CH supported NEI with the campaign in 2022 to encourage teens to submit their science-related videos for a chance to visit NIH and win cash prizes. So some of the goals included increase awareness of the National Institutes of Health and interest in science, specifically biomedical research and eye health related fields. Encourage vision and eye health related video submissions for a video contest. And inspire students to explore and consider a career in a science related field. The priority audience for this campaign was teens, ages specifically 13 to 19, with an interest in science. And the secondary audience was partner organizations with connections to teens interested in science, as well as parents and teachers. So CH used social media as a key outreach tactic for campaigns, or for this campaign rather, but teens were a new audience that NEI was aiming to reach through social media that they hadn't before. So we ended up using several creative tactics to reach them. In the case of Eye on the Future, we were able to do some formative research with the priority audience just to better understand how to reach them, how they preferred to receive this information. And in this research, we learned that TikTok and Instagram were the social media platforms that teens preferred using the most. And this is pretty consistent with what data shows about who uses these platforms. And then we primarily used Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter as a means to reach intermediaries like teachers, parents, or like I mentioned, organizations that have a direct reach to high school students. In thinking about tactics for reaching a teen audience for this campaign, we knew we had to get creative, both in how to use the platforms and the content to develop on the platforms. Like I mentioned, NEI does not have TikTok or an Instagram account, and it didn't make sense for NEI to start accounts for this campaign. So we were actually able to access both of these platforms using paid posts. And since you can't boost posts on TikTok and Instagram, or sorry, you can boost posts on TikTok and Instagram, even if you don't have accounts on those platforms. So once we knew we could post on Instagram and TikTok, we knew we could develop short form videos since they are the most popular form of content. We used paid ads with an audience segmentation aspect to make sure that our content got onto the news feeds of teenagers. And that's another benefit of paid posts, is that you can actually segment the posts by audiences. And since we were aiming to reach teens with an interest in science, we researched areas of the country that had strong high school STEM programs, and we narrowed in on a few cities where we could focus our boosted posts for that teen demographic. We also partnered with an influencer who had a following of teenagers on these platforms to try and engage with new priority audience members. And we developed a toolkit to share with partners. So I'm now going to show you a couple of examples of the content that we used for this campaign. We have a standard Twitter post with an eye-catching graphic, the deadline for the contest, and some more general important information about the contest itself. We actually created a short form video with NEI's director, Dr. Chang, to share the rules of the video contest. It should be noted that we wanted this video to remain as authentic as possible and appear handmade rather than made by a team of video editors and graphic designers, because research does tell us that authenticity performs really well on TikTok. So as you'll see in the video, we structured the content using a stepped approach to make the information easily digestible and actionable. And I'm going to play it for you right now.
Hey everyone, are you a high school student who's interested in science? If so, then listen up, because this video is really meant for you. My name is Dr. Michael Chang. I'm director of the National Eye Institute, or the NEI, and we're part of the National Institutes of Health, which is the NIH. So we at the NEI are hosting a video contest for a chance to win prizes and a chance to come here to visit the NIH to meet some really incredible scientists. You can win one of those cash prizes and a chance to come here to NIH by following 3 pretty easy steps. Step 1 is to choose one of the prompts from the links here below. Step 2 is to go ahead and record that video. Step 3 is to submit that video to us at NEI by following the instructions that's linked over here below before April 8th. We are really excited to see what you come up with and to be able to support the next generation of young scientists like you. Thanks a lot and look forward to it.
All right. Very cute, very, very simple. So we also worked with an influencer who actually developed his own short form video contest for us to share. And he also hosted an Instagram Live with NEI's director to answer some questions about the video contest. So a little high level background on influencers and working with them. Influencers can act as intermediaries for brands to reach the audience that they want. And an influencer can instill trust in your brand or campaign and create an element of relatability. And just like with partners, it can help you reach a new group of people in your priority audience. So we worked with, he goes by HipHopND on Instagram, and his content aligned with NEI's brand and voice, and it appeals to a younger audience. So as part of our partnership with him, HipHopMD provided, like I said, videos promoting the Eye on the Future contest and Instagram Live discussion and promotion of the contest on his personal channels. And I'm actually going to show you one of the videos. Give me 1 second to pull it up.
If you're like me, you're probably fascinated by the world of science. Everything from new technology and electronics to advancements in artificial intelligence, and of course, the wonders of our natural world. Science is all about finding ways to answer some of the universe's most challenging questions. And if that sounds exciting to you, then the Eye on the Future video contest should be right up your alley. You'll have a chance to win up to $2,000. I'm talking cash money, fans, racks on racks on racks. If you're a high school student, the National Eye Institute wants to hear from you about how you can make an impact on the planet. Pick from a variety of topics, such as describing your favorite scientific discovery, or even performing a live demonstration. Safely, of course. Once you submit, you not only have a chance to win cash, you'll also get invited to the National Eye Institute headquarters to shadow a real-life scientist. Enter now for your chance to win if you're like me.
And it'll go on repeat. But yeah, so he created that for us and we loved it. We shared it on all of NEI's platforms. And he was great to work with. Okay, so now we'll jump into a couple of the outcomes of this campaign. As a result of our efforts to use the best possible strategies, platforms, and respective tactics, we were able to accomplish over 400,000 impressions and over 100,000 engagements across Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok from paid ads over the course of 3 months. We received 41 video contest submissions over 18 states. We awarded 3 students prizes for their videos, and we hosted 10 students on a visit to the NIH campus in Bethesda. The second case study we'll be touching on is called the Move Your Way campaign. It's from the HHS Office of Disease Prevention and Health Promotion, or ODPHP, for a bit of background. The Move Your Way campaign was a really large, multifaceted national campaign, but today we'll only be focusing on some of their social media initiatives. So some of the goals of the social media campaign included increasing awareness and knowledge of the physical activity guidelines for Americans, and to motivate people to be more active. The priority audience for this campaign was physical activity contemplators, which means people who are not currently meeting the guidelines for physical activity, but who are motivated to in the next 6 months or so. More specifically, Move Your Way looked at these physical activity contemplators in the following areas within the following demographics. They wanted to focus on older adults in Southern West Virginia, pregnant and postpartum people in Little Rock, Arkansas, pregnant and postpartum people in Sioux City, Iowa, Spanish speakers in Southern Nevada, and teens in Chicago. So we use the following platforms for this campaign: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat, Pinterest, and TikTok. CH assessed each community to determine the highest rates of engagement on the various social media platforms. And one example of this is that we focused our social media ad buy solely on Facebook in Southern West Virginia, as our priority audience included older adults in a rural community. And based on the assessment, older adults are mainly using Facebook as compared to other social media platforms. So some of the tactics we used included using paid ads to encourage movement and educate about physical activity. CH worked with a media vendor actually to develop an ad buy strategy of including a mix of digital, social media, and traditional media that varied by community and priority audience in that community. Throughout the campaign period, we made some shifts to the campaign ad buy and creative based on some responses to COVID-19, vaccinations, changes in media, consumption behavior, and platform performance. Some other tactics include we developed long and short form videos to promote the campaign and encourage website traffic. We connected with some local partner organizations to share Move Your Way content. And we actually used Snapchat geo filters in one of the target communities. Here's an example of a paid ad that went to both Facebook and Instagram, and we used audience segmentation for this ad to reach our priority audiences. So as a result of our efforts to use the best possible platforms and respective tactics, here were the outcomes for the Move Your Way campaign on social media. There was a reported click-through rate of 1%, which is pretty high, and rates remained high throughout the duration of the campaign, and it gained over 17 million impressions. Okay, so now we're going to pause for questions, because I know we just covered a lot of content. So if you have anything to ask, please write it in the chat or unmute yourself if you would like to ask it out loud. Lisa Cunningham asks, what is a social media impression? And actually, Lisa, we will be going over that in the next 20 minutes or so. So we'll go through metrics and the definitions of metrics. I mentioned a toolkit. Is that something we can have access to? So a toolkit is a deliverable that we at CH have created for a lot of different campaigns. It's not just one thing, it's something we develop for pretty much every campaign we do that involves partner organizations. I noticed
actually, I think we could send, I can find an example of one that we made for the National Eye Institute, because we have some sample materials on their website as well. So I can put one of those in the chat. And the toolkit can kind of look a lot of different ways. Like it might be a Word document that has sample social media posts and sample graphics, or sometimes we will create online toolkits so that anyone is able to access them. And those also include sample social media posts, sample graphics to download, sometimes videos, depending on what the campaign is. So let me find an example from National Eye Institute.
All right, well, Ashley does that. I will continue answering some questions. Someone asked, I noticed many of the videos have been edited. How much time do you estimate it takes to create and edit a social media video? Is it easy to do? I will say, I don't know Hip Hop ND's process. I imagine because he was a paid influencer, he probably put a little more time and money behind his. It was a lot more edited and fancy than ours. The one with Dr. Chang, I created myself using TikTok on my phone, actually. And it really only took me, I would say, 30 minutes. it's not hard to use at all. It's not hard to do. And because authenticity is really valued on TikTok, it doesn't have to be perfect. So you don't have to spend hours and hours on a video to get it onto TikTok. All right. What does working with an influencer consist of? As in, what should be considered in a contract and what should we expect monetarily? That's actually a good question. And I don't believe that I can answer that because I wasn't really involved in the monetary side of working with an influencer. Ashley, do you have any insight into this by any chance?
I don't know specifically how much he costs to work with, but certainly influencers do expect and should be compensated. And that's been kind of a shift in the social media world in more recent times that there is an expectation that influencers, it is their job and they should be paid and compensated for the promotion that they're doing. So it definitely is a paid relationship, but it depends on how many followers that person has and what their rates are. So you would have to, work directly with that person. And then as far as thinking about things to consider with a federal client, there were some additional considerations that went into deciding on Hip Hop MD. And so we did some, just general background research on his posts to ensure that his messages were aligning with NEI's voice and tone and brand, and that there wasn't anything that would be too controversial. And so some considerations like that should also be made, especially if you're working with federal clients or organizations.
Yes, agreed. And to build off of that, there's a second question about influencers. Is the compensation tied to how many clicks the influencers get? I would say no. It's more, what I do know is that influencers tend to get paid more by their following, how many followers they have, or how much engagement they get on their account. Those are probably the two biggest things I would say, but they're not, for example, like paid per click. I will answer one more question, and then I think we're going to hop over to the activity portion. Okay, let's see. You mentioned earlier knowing what the best times to post. Will this require having a backend account like Hootsuite to know this? Yes. So we do use Sprout Social here at CH and platforms like Sprout Social and Hootsuite and others, because I know there's a lot of social media management platforms out there. They will provide this information for you after you've used them for a while. If you connect your account, they'll be able to tell you what the best times to post are based on when your audience is online, how much engagement you get at what times, things like that. It's kind of hard to determine that without the help of a management platform, I will say.
We might be able to answer a few more.
Okay.
Let's see. And just acknowledging Danielle, thank you for your comment about TikTok. And with the clients that we've worked with, neither client has actually had a TikTok account, and partially it was because of some of the concerns around less kind of regulation around TikTok. And so we were able to promote posts on TikTok by using boosted posts. But I can definitely see how these I haven't heard about these specific concerns that you've mentioned, but that's really serious. So let's see. And then what platform is best to share health information? I think it really depends on kind of who your audience is and what you're looking to achieve. Like Emily shared, there's so many differences between each of the platforms. So that's kind of a strategic decision that you have to make when thinking about your audience and what they need or where they are as well.
Great.
And formative research for NEI, we have a research team at Communicate Health, and Oftentimes we're doing in-depth interviews with participants, sometimes focus groups, but I believe the formative research that Emily was talking about for Eye on the Future was in-depth interviews.
Yes, it was a qualitative study.
Yep.
Okay. I think we can move on. I will, for those whose questions we didn't get to yet, we will have a second opportunity for questions at the end. But for now, we should probably move on to our activity. Okay. So our first activity is going to involve the platforms and tactics that we've discussed so far. So what we're going to do is we're going to break you out into small groups. Please start by picking a note taker and a speaker to share some key takeaways from your discussion. We'll be bringing you all back together and we'll be looking for volunteers to share what you discussed so that we can all learn from each other and maybe answer some questions around any blocks that you ran into. You'll want to select a hypothetical social media campaign scenario, which we will show you on the next slide. We have given you scenarios, so you don't have to come up with one. And you're going to brainstorm which platforms and tactics to use to reach your audience via social media. For example, you may want to consider some of the questions that we asked previously, such as what platforms does my audience use the most based on the research that I've already shown you? What types of partners might you work with to reach your audience? How might you use paid posts? And if you were to partner with an influencer, what type of influencer would you be looking for? So for these scenarios, let's pretend you have an unlimited budget. The sky is the limit. And these are the scenarios. We'll all give you about 15 to 20 minutes to discuss platforms and tactics for your respective campaigns. Again, these are just hypothetical campaigns with an unlimited amount of money. And these are example scenarios that you can choose, whichever one your group finds the most interesting. And I'll leave the scenarios up on the screen so that you can refer back to it when you need to. All right, now I'm going to just break you out into the groups. One moment. Okay. All right, and please go ahead, and we will bring you guys back when it's time. All right, give people a second to trickle back in here. Okay. So now we're going to discuss a little bit about each group's proposed campaign strategy. We'll keep this super brief and high level. You don't have to get into the nitty gritty. But yeah, any volunteers to go first? Otherwise, we can just go by group number.
We can go first. Group 13, I think we were. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Do you guys have a speaker? Are you going to be a speaker?
Yeah, I'll speak.
Sounds good.
So group 13. Yep. We selected bullet number 4, item number 4, because one of the team members has some experience with this in his professional role. So we looked at the audience and we realized, of course, as you've mentioned earlier, the platform selected should align with the audience. We recognize there's actually a couple audiences here. Primarily, it's the pediatricians, right, that are the source of information. And whereas between the pediatrician and the children who ultimately be tested, there's a parent or a caregiver, maybe more than one person responsible for the care of the children. So what we looked at is how do we find a platform or platforms that are accessible for the pediatricians, and now they become influencers in another way, where they would ultimately cascade the information down to the parent and the caregivers. So a couple things we thought of was Maybe the use of course, more than one platform, Facebook, perhaps TikTok, because we looked at the age, these children are maybe 1 to 5 years. So their parents maybe are in their 20s or 30s, maybe even more broadly than that. So Facebook has quite a large audience. TikTok, tends to be a younger audience. So we thought we'd have that covered. And as we're sharing the information, we thought to incorporate something like a video, almost a cartoon-like video that, we see a lot of times in pediatricians' offices in illustration and books, right? As well as it may even be entertaining for the children in a non-threatening way to kind of say, someone's going to give you a blood test. So those are some of our thoughts.
That's great. I love that. And I love the idea of an animated video. And you make a really good point that young children, the demographic for parents is going to be younger. Or I shouldn't say younger. I should say mid to late 20s, early 30s. So that was great. Thank you so much. You guys put so much thought into that. Just prefacing, we won't be able to get to every group, but does another group want to volunteer to share? And see, Lisa has her hand up. Oh, great.
Me? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So our group chose number 5, a youth health nonprofit that wants to share resources about mental health with Black teens ages 15 to 17. So for platforms, we chose TikTok and Instagram, as well as YouTube, focusing on short videos that could be shared across the 3 different platforms. We first talked about maybe partnering with a Black teen influencer that already kind of has a following on those platforms, maybe one that's previously discussed mental health in their videos before. But then I think we kind of landed on working with local organizations, schools, religious organizations, and then other extracurricular groups, and actually creating our own influencers. So we talked about potentially recruiting students that are participating in the campaign to kind of be spokespeople for the campaign and create their own videos and promote it on their own social media platforms. And one of the members of my group suggested having the students ask questions to other Black teens, like on the street or in whatever, at school or wherever they hang out, about mental health, and kind of starting the conversation there, learning more about what they know about mental health and kind of where their baseline is, and promoting further discussions.
I keep talking while I'm muted. I love that. It's important to get the input of your priority audience. So if you're able to get it directly, I think that's really valuable. Group 9 did volunteer to go next. So group 9, whoever your speaker is, you go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello, we are from group 9. We chose scenario 3, encouraging COVID-19 vaccines among parents of children between 6 months and 5 years old. And we thought that the age of the parents would be pretty varied, between 18 and 45 years old. And so that gives us a large audience to work with. We decided video would be the best place to start. We chose TikTok as our platform, and we wanted to have families discussing the positives about the vaccine. What does it mean to them? Why it's important to get the vaccine, how important their kids are to them, just kind of discussing their families. Perhaps have someone share a story about a child who has had COVID and was not vaccinated, and what kind of an impact that had on the family, as well as perhaps someone who has been vaccinated, and how that is impacting the family. And then we also thought about, if one of the parents is a pediatrician, they can share what they've seen with their patients and their experiences during COVID, and also talk a little bit about the science behind it. And then for the older kiddos who may not be too keen on getting shots, right? The 5-year-olds and 4-year-olds, we also thought about having one of the younger children saying something like, I got a shot and it didn't hurt. to kind of to round that out to reach out to the ages. And that's as far as we got.
No, I think that's great. You guys are incredibly thorough. And just from personal experience, I can say that COVID-19 vaccines is definitely one of the more challenging issues when it comes to any campaign, but especially a social media campaign towards parents. So that's great. You guys were clearly incredibly thorough. Okay, we're gonna have Lisa go because she had her hand up, and then we're gonna have to move on for the sake of time. But Lisa, would you like to go ahead and share?
Hi, we are Group 10. We also chose number 3, a government agency wants to encourage COVID-19 vaccines. Ours focus was more on the campaign. So we decided we were going to have infographics and videos that we would mainly create the campaign through Facebook, but also boosting through Twitter and YouTube for the video content. That we would work with existing Facebook groups that are built for parents to try and find people who are actively looking for information. Our influencer would be a mommy or daddy blogger, the parent's age or maybe slightly older, but someone who has a strong scientific background, so they're not gonna turn around and say something we regret immediately after being in the campaign. One of the examples came up was perhaps Mama Dr. Jones.
I love that. I think that's so creative. I love the mommy blogger aspect. And sounds like you guys already picked one. So wow, impressive. You guys really put some thought into this. So thank you so much. Yeah, like I said, for the sake of time, we do have to move on, but we will be coming back to these scenarios at the end for a much, much shorter activity. So keep these in mind. These aren't going anywhere just yet. Okay, and now I'm going to pass it over back to Ashley, and she's going to go quickly over how to measure the success of your social media campaign.
Thanks, Emily. Yes, so we're going to talk now about how to track performance and measure success. So in order to measure success on social media, you'll want to know more about some of the most popular metrics. So Emily, if you can go to the next slide. So this is a list of some of the more common metrics that you can use to determine success. And I'm not going to read through all of these right now, but depending on what your goals are, you may look at all of these metrics or just some of these. And oftentimes you'll be looking at a mix of metrics, which will really give you the best overall look at how your content is performing on social. And in general, metrics like engagements and clicks and views tend to be more meaningful than metrics like impressions and reach, because these metrics really demonstrate that a person has taken an action on your post. So setting objectives is also crucial to measuring success of any campaign, and that includes social media campaigns as well. And the SMARTY method can help you develop objectives that are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound, inclusive, and equitable. And if you've been in the public health field for a while, you've probably heard of SMART objectives, but it's possible that SMARTY is a new term. And by adding the IE to SMART, you're ensuring that your initiative is committed to equity and inclusion by anchoring it to tangible and actionable steps. So this can look a number of different ways depending on the initiative, but we will provide an example on the next slide. So here are a few examples of objectives that CH has helped the National Eye Institute set for Healthy Vision Month for their campaign this past May. So to provide some background on Healthy Vision Month is NEI's largest health observance. And NEI uses Healthy Vision Month as an opportunity to raise awareness about eye health and selects a different priority audience each year. In 2022, NEI's priority audience was Black and Hispanic and Latino families. So as you'll see, our objectives follow the SMARTY model here. The objectives are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. And the second objective is a good example of a SMART objective that has the IE considerations, since our priority audience for this campaign was Black and Hispanic and Latino parents, which were groups disproportionately affected by eye disease due to barriers in access to eye care. So by ensuring that at least half of the Healthy Vision Month partners were organizations who work directly with the priority audience, this was a way to really meet the audience where they were. I will say that we met both of these objectives, and much of the partner engagement for this campaign did take place over social media. So in order to track on the progress towards meeting your objectives, part of this is tracking on analytics. So you can pull analytics and metrics either through a social media management software or through the back end of any platform. So most platforms do have their own analytics insights, which you can access to measure the success of your campaign. And we've included a screenshot of what this looks like for Twitter. So as you can see from these graphs, we also track on NEI's social media progress from month to month to really get a sense of how the social media content is performing. So we track on both impressions and engagements and a variety of other metrics not represented here, but we also track on campaign-specific performance. So for example, Healthy Vision Month ran from May 1st to 31st. So we made sure to track on Healthy Vision Month content metrics for the entire month of May, and then compared the results to the year prior to analyze the campaign's growth. So having data on your social media performance is really key to optimizing your performance and helps you understand the types of content that your audience responds best to. And you can use your performance to make data-driven recommendations. So that section was short and sweet, but now we do have some more time for questions before we do another short activity that is going to be centered around objectives and metrics. So to answer some of the questions that we had received before, for example, someone asked, how do you measure whether someone has viewed your entire video? Emily, do you have an answer for that question?
I do. So a lot of platforms allow you to look at a lot of the metrics we discussed today on the back end, and this includes video metrics. So a lot of the times, like for YouTube or for Facebook, for example, it will tell you how many people viewed it for 3 seconds, how many people viewed it for 1 minute, and how many people viewed the entire thing. And in terms of the best way to measure metrics in general, like we showed, each platform has a backend that usually shows you the metrics of your own account. But if you use a social media management platform like Hootsuite or Sprout Social, that platform will also do all the work for you and keep all of the data and all the metrics in one place. And that's what we do. We use Sprout Social to kind of condense all of the data. And this includes videos, views, and shares, and all of that good stuff. And we had a couple other questions that we wanted to circle back to, right, Ashley?
Yes, and this is actually one of them. So about courses or certificates for those who want to become more social media savvy. And Emily and I checked in on this, and neither of us know of a specific course or certificate. A lot of, I think, the learning that happens with social media is through kind of on-the-job trial and error, and also with your own experiences as well. Of course, like coming to a session like this can be helpful. Emily and I both went to a large social media conference this past year called Social Fresh. And it's more of like a marketing social media conference. So there definitely are things out there, but we don't have a specific recommendation for like a specific course or certificate. Yes. And social media themselves have courses. Yeah. And there's a ton of information out there just about the different platforms, how to use them from the platforms themselves, because they want you to use their platform. So LinkedIn has a ton of information about its platform, how best to use it, best practices. And these things are constantly changing. So you might feel like you're an expert in a certain social media platform, and then things change and you kind of have to relearn. So it's just constantly evolving as well. And so it's always kind of finding, doing your own research and like figuring out what's going on with each one. Thinking about a call to action. Should we also encourage follow us? Oh, yeah. So you mean like follow us as in, I'm reading this question, thinking back to a call to action, should we also encourage follow us? Is it not important to have a large following to have a call to action, like get a flu shot to be successful? That's a great question. I think you would want to separate those two, because in general, it's a best practice to have one call to action per post. So there aren't like conflicting calls to action. That being said, like you might have one post about follow us and make that really specific and the steps for how to do that, and then a different post for like a behavior change thing, like get the flu shot, for example. I think teasing out those two would be important, just to be as clear as possible.
Just flagging here that we're probably going to want to move on to the activity in a sec, because we do only have 10 minutes left in the session. And I think those were at least most of the questions. Yes, there was, how do you provide best practices for social media platforms for beginners with limited knowledge, financial and human resources, without overwhelming them? Like we mentioned, there are lots of small certificate programs that organizations run, both the social media platforms themselves and places like Sprout Social and Hootsuite, that will do like a social media 101 course, sometimes for free. So a lot of the times the platform does a great job of condensing the information in an easy to understand way, in bite-sized pieces. You're not going to become an expert overnight if you're a beginner, but it will give you the necessary, most important basics of social media. And like I said, it's free most of the time. It's free. So yeah, I would do some research into best practices that are provided by these platforms, and see if you can inform maybe your coworkers or certain communities that way. Okay, so we do have to move on to the activity. This next one is going to be short. Okay, so basically using the same scenarios in hopefully the same breakout groups, because I'm going to break you out again. You're going to pick a note taker and a speaker. You're going to set a hypothetical Smarty objective for your campaign and brainstorm how to measure your campaign's success. And then we will bring you back really quickly to share, or if you guys would prefer to share by putting your Smarty objective in the chat, that works too. But we're going to give you guys about 5 minutes in your rooms with the same scenario that you picked before.
Emily, I wonder if we want to maybe just have it be independent, since we don't have a lot of time left. So everyone could maybe just do a quick pivot so we don't have to get back into breakouts. And everyone could maybe just think about the prompt for a few minutes and then write in your response after like 3 minutes or so. How does that sound, Emily?
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, you all had some really great campaign ideas. So based on those, think about what your Smarty objective would be, and then maybe either put it in the chat or we can share near the end here. And yes, I can put up the Smarty definitions one more time.
Yeah, and again, like where we can pretend that the sky is the limit here. So yeah, do your best to set a Smarty objective, and then we'll ask for them in the chat in a couple minutes. Okay, well, since we have just a few minutes left, Would anyone like to share a sample Smarty objective that they set for their hypothetical campaign? And feel free to come off mute too if anyone feels like sharing out loud.
Yeah, feel free to put it in the chat if you don't want to.
Maybe we didn't give enough time. Emily G, I see you have a question about ensuring you're developing social media content with health literacy in mind. And that's a great question. Emily and I are lucky to work at an organization, Communicate Health, where health literacy is top of mind for any work that we are doing. And we have a team of writers and editors who really specialize in plain language and ensuring content is written in a way that is clear and accessible. But there are also things you can do on social, like ensuring your videos always have closed captions, using alt text with your posts and graphics for your posts to make them accessible. We could probably do a whole separate training on just making social media content with health literacy in mind.
It looks like we've got some Smarties here. Looks good.
Yeah, these are great. So they're specific, measurable. Looks like it's hitting all of the different qualities of a Smarty objective.
Okay, 1 more minute to put in your Smarty objectives.
Yes, or any last questions?
Or any final questions, yeah.
Yeah, we're wrapping up here.
I think it's not a more, I think more of a comment. Speaking on like the transcreation versus the translation of social media posts. A lot of the times, obviously, the original is in English. And when thinking to translate or to reach other cultures or other non-English language speakers, a lot of the times our first intuition is to just translate it. And sometimes that does not work. It doesn't fit the culture. And so transcreating, kind of having the same gist of your message. I sometimes review social media posts for my organization, and there was one on food, preventing foodborne illness. And it was like, don't eat the cookie dough when you're baking. It was in Spanish. And I'm like, we would never eat cookie dough in the Latino community. And so I suggested, make sure your baked goods are cooked all the way in Spanish, like your tamales or your tortillas or something. So it's still culturally relevant versus it's never going to resonate with someone to eat cookie dough in a specific culture. So I thought I'd share transcreation and being flexible and trusting that person you're working with and having someone that could very much is part of that culture you're trying to reach.
Thank you so much. Yes, that is certainly important. And we're getting to do a little bit of that with our clients now too, and our Spanish content language specialist, who is a huge advocate for transcreation. So thank you so much, Erica, for mentioning that.
Yeah, and with that, we are at time. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining today and asking such insightful questions and participating in our activities. We hope you walk away with this with some new information, some new knowledge, and hope you have a wonderful weekend.